the first meeting of the expert group for the revision of the principles and recommendations. To open the meeting and to introduce the program of work, I invite Ms. Francesca Groom, who is the Assistant Director of UNSD and the Chief of the Demographic and Social Statistics Branch. Francesca, you have the floor to open the meeting.
Thank you very much, Sefi, and greetings from New York. A very warm welcome to the expert group meeting on the revision of the current United Nations principles and recommendations for population and housing censuses that were endorsed in 2015 by the United Nations Statistical Commission. Let me start by saying a few words to get us started. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the fact that the United Nations have been providing support to national statistical offices and census officials throughout the world in planning and carrying out population and housing censuses since the establishment of the UN Statistical Commission. In fact, at its very first session in 1947, the Statistical Commission discussed population censuses and recognized the need for the UN Secretariat, the UNSD, to encourage and assist member states in this endeavor. To this end, UNSD has been issuing a series of international principles and recommendations, or PNRs, as we call them, on population and housing censuses since 1958, so a long time ago. To set international standards and provide guidance on the main characteristics of population housing censuses, on census methods and processes, as well as on the content of censuses, thus promoting and facilitating the production of internationally comparable census statistics. Since 1958, these PNRs have been updated or revised regularly, more or less every 10 years, to reflect and integrate lessons learned, as well as current practices and national needs. They've also been updated to improve the census relevance, efficiencies, and cost effectiveness. So now, as the 2020 round of censuses is coming to an end, we need to initiate the preparations for the next round of censuses, the 2030 round, based on experiences and lessons learned so far. We are all aware of the multitude of changes that have been documented in the current round, including the use of contemporary technologies, the adoption of a multi-mode approach to data collection, the use of alternative data sources such as administrative registers, and the many changes and innovations countries had to adopt to overcome the challenges of conducting censuses during the COVID-19 pandemic. So all of this brings us to our meeting today and over the next 3 days, when we will start preparing for the 2030 round on censuses by reviewing the current international standards and by agreeing on what needs to be updated, removed, or added. That's our first expected achievement for this expert group meeting. The second one is to agree on the process that will lead us to a new set, a revised set of principles and recommendations. On this last point, the work plan, the proposed process and timeline for the revision of the PNRs is available in the draft concept note that was already shared with you and that will be further presented during this meeting. But just a quick reminder, we are proposing to establish selected task teams to work on specific parts of the PNRs for final discussion and decisions by the whole expert group before the revised principles and recommendations are submitted to the Statistical Commission for approval in March 2025. Of course, the experience and the contribution that each of you bring to this process is very crucial. We have around 30 experts representing 24 member states from all regions of the world, and another 30 experts from 17 entities and agencies working at the global and regional levels with us at the table today. So collectively, you are the core group of experts who will be shaping the global recommendations for the 2030 round on censuses. Many thanks to all for that. Now, quickly turning to the agenda for this very first meeting of the expert group that we are establishing for the revision of the PNRs. That was also shared with you. Today, on day one, we will take stock of lessons learned and major challenges faced while undertaking the 2020 round of censuses. We will also talk about innovations and good practices in census taking. That's day one. Tomorrow, on day two, we will discuss about the organizational work for the revision of the PNRs, and we will review and, I trust, agree on the proposed task teams. If time allows, tomorrow we should also be able to start looking at session 5 and 6, where we will zoom in into recommended population and housing topics. And then on day 3, the last day on Thursday, we will also look at how to improve the structure, the design, and the format of the PNRs to make them easier to read and to follow. Finally, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your willingness to contribute to the revision of the PNRs, and I wish you all a very fruitful meeting and discussions. So with that, I think we can maybe, do you want us to go around the table or we take a picture now, Seifi?
Let's everyone introduce themselves and then we'll take the group picture.
Okay,
afterwards. Yeah.
So just for make it a little bit easier, why don't I can call you and then you introduce yourself. I'll go just alphabetically the way I see you in the list in front of me. So we'll jump from UNSD and other partners at the international level, and then all the countries should show up. Okay, so Adriana Scanderi.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Adriana Scanderi. I am a statistician at the Demographic Statistics section of the United Nations Statistics Division, so part of the group who is organizing this meeting. Welcome to all and looking forward to the proceedings of this meeting.
Thank you, Adri. Afsane.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afsane Yadnani, and I am a statistician at Statistics Division of ESCAP. And I'm very glad that we can work together on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Afsane. Nice to see you. Alessio.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Alessio Cangiano. I am a technical specialist for census and demographic data at UNFPA HQ in New York. Thanks a lot for inviting us to join this forum.
Of course, UNFPA, big partner. Ali? Ali Mahmoud?
Yes, good afternoon or good morning. I'm Ali Mahmoud Raisi. I work as an advisor to Department of Statistics and Community Development in Sharqa. I am representing GCC Static.
Thank you very much for being with us. Ali Said.
Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Ali Said. I'm the Director for Population and Labor Statistics, Sussex, Indonesia. It is my privilege to join this expert group, and I hope Sussex, Indonesia can contribute to the revision of the document of the Population and Housing Census Handbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali Said. Espen Andersen. No? Okay, maybe Andrea, our Andrea.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Andrea De Luca from Demographic Statistics section.
Thank you, Andrea. We have Andres Gutierrez Rojas.
In some cases, maybe the participants are muted, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also,
I just
yeah.
Yes, Andrew. Our Andrew.
Hello, colleagues. Nice to see you all. Andrew Smith. I'm a statistician here in the Demographic Statistics section of UNSD.
Thank you. Asia Nihari.
Good morning to all organizers and participants. I'm Asia Nijari from Morocco. I head the Census Data Analysis Unit at the High Commission for Planning, and it's my great pleasure to join this expert group. Thank you.
Thank you, Asia. I have Larry Bartlett.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am a policy lead on the future of the census in England and Wales at the UK Statistics Authority, and as part of that, I work with colleagues across the UK on the future of the census. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important. We'll definitely touch on that. Geoff from Stats Canada.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for organizing this meeting. I'm looking forward to the discussions over the next few days. My name is Jeff Bowlby. I'm the Director General responsible for the census at Statistics Canada.
Thank you very much. I have Christophe Lefranc.
Hello, colleagues. My name is Christophe Lefranc. I'm a regional advisor at UNFPA covering the Asia Pacific region based in Bangkok.
Thank you, Christophe.
Francesca, maybe you should invite everyone to turn on their camera when they introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Some are not turning their cameras on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you just heard Seifi. If you can, please do so. Turn your camera on. I have Deborah Stempowski.
Hi, good morning. This is Deborah Stempowski. I'm the Associate Director for the Decennial Census at the U.S. Census Bureau.
Thank you, Deborah. Dennis Mwaniki.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Dennis Mwaniki from Yenabitat, and I'm a geospatial data expert. Really excited for the discussions in this working group.
Thank you, Dennis. Our own Elena de Jesus.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Elena de Jesus. I'm a statistician with the Demographic Statistics section at UNSD. I'm really looking forward to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. I have Fabiana del Popolo.
Good morning. I'm Fabiana del Popolo. I'm the chief of the Demographic and Information on Population area at CELADE, Population Division of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Fabiana. We have Fiona. Hi, Fiona.
Hi, I'm Fiona Willis-Nunes. I'm at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe here in Geneva. I'm running the sort of parallel process to this group in the UNECE region. So I'm really pleased to be part of this process. Thanks for having me here.
And yes, absolutely. We really need to make sure that the process is harmonized. I have Fred Okwayo.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Federico Okwayo. I work for UNFPA as a regional advisor of population and development based in Johannesburg and taking care of East and Southern Africa. A pleasure.
Thank you, Fred. Gerardo Gallo.
Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Gerardo Gallo. I'm a demographer and I work to the Italian National Institute of Statistics, and I'm the head of the Permanent Population Census Division. Thank you very much.
Grazie, Gerardo. Aoi, our own Aoi. Aoi from UNSD. Okay. No, we cannot hear you. Helen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Wanyeke, working with Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you. Hiroki?
Hi, good morning. I'm Hiro Ogawa from the Demographic Statistic section of the UNSD. I'm looking forward to the fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiro. Ipek?
Good afternoon from Beirut. My name is İpek Dedeoğlu. I'm working at UNESCO. I'm a statistician in the Statistic Division. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ipek. Ismail?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ismail Lubad from UNESCO Statistics Division.
Thank you, Ismail. Javier Sebastián Ruiz Santa Cruz?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastián Ruiz. I am the recent director of Census and Demography Unit at the National Statistics Bureau of Colombia. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Thank you, Javier. Jeff Montgomery?
Good morning. I'm Jeff Montgomery. I'm from the Pacific Community, or SPC, where I'm the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics expert. Previously, I was the Registrar General of New Zealand, so I'm not a census expert. So I'm here as a civil registration expert and perhaps a non-expert census person. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you so much for being with us. It's very late for you, so we appreciate your efforts. Job Morse? Job Morse?
Thank you so much. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My name is Mose Job from Kenya, currently working with UNECA as a census technical advisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Job Mose. Jorge Luis Vega?
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Madrid. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. My name is Jorge Vega, and I am responsible of the population register here in Spain, and previously I was involved with the census. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. Lalita?
Hello, good morning. I'm Lalita Sohai. I'm the Social and Gender Statistician at the Regional Statistics Program in the CARICOM Secretariat. I also assist with the coordination of the census in the region, the CARICOM region. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalita. Lenin Alberto?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lenin. I'm from ECLAC, Santiago, working with Fabiana in Population Division from ECLAC, and it's a pleasure to continue working together in this adventure like census. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gracias, Lenin. Lukman Omar?
Good day, everyone. My name is Lukman Omar from Statistics South Africa. I'm the Chief Director responsible for data operations. I look forward to the engagements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Malaysia, Norfarisa? Sorry, Norfarisa from Malaysia. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from Malaysia. My name is Norfarisa Hanim. I'm currently working in the Population and Demographic Division from Department of Statistics. Thank you.
Nice to see you again, Norfarisa. I have Marcin.
Marcin from Poland, yes?
Marcin for Poland.
Okay, nice to meet you. Greetings from rainy Poland. My name is Marcin Szymkowiak. I am Deputy Director of Statistical Office in Poznan, Statistics Poland. For a very long time, I used to work as statistician in the Center for Smaller Estimation, and I was involved in the group of census quality assessment and calibration, many aspects devoted to non-response in censuses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcin. We look forward to learning from your experience. Margaret, our own Margaret.
Hi, I'm Margaret Bogoni, a senior statistician at the UNSD. I work in the social and gender statistics section. I'm glad to be part of this group one more time, given the long experience I had on the census program. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Mark Harding.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Harding. I'm the program manager for the census in Australia, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And same to you, Mark. Thanks for being with us very late at night for you. Matthias? Matthias, let me see if I can see more about your name. Pupi.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody. So my name is Matthias Cuepier. I am, for some reason, my camera is not turning on, but no problem. So I am Matthias Cuepier from UNFPA Regional Office for West and Central Africa. I am the population data advisor, so monitoring the census all over the Central and Western Africa region. It is a pleasure for me to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. Mehmet?
Thank you, Francesca. Good afternoon from Nairobi. This is Mehmet Okarakaya from UN Habitat, United Nations Human Settlements Program, Data and Analytics Unit. I'm a demographer and statistician. I was working for Turkish Statistical Institute during the past rounds of the principles.
Thank you, Mehmet. Thanks. I have Melchiorri.
Good afternoon, everyone. Michele Melchiorri from Italy. I work as a project officer at the European Commission Joint Research Center, working a lot with geospatial data. Glad to contribute to the process, and thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Miriam, our own Miriam.
Hello, dear colleagues. I am Mariam Demirci. I'm Interregional Advisor at the Demographic and Social Statistics Branch at the UN Statistics Division. I'm very happy to be part of this group and very excited for our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Mitali?
Greetings, I'm Mitali Sen from the International Program Center of the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm the Chief of Technical Assistance and Capacity Building in there. So we're really looking forward to these discussions, and UNPNR is our foundation of the work we do. So,
thank you so much, Mitali. Musidi?
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Musidi Nhlapo. I'm a demographer. I am the Director for Births and Death Statistics from Vital Statistics on the census side. I'm the head for census content input and output. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Musidi. Sorry, I didn't get the country. I don't know if you mentioned
South
it.
Africa.
Oh, South Africa. Okay, thanks, Musidi. Nasser Saleh?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nasser from Qatar. I'm the Director of Census Surveys and Statistic Methods. It's my pleasure to be one of this experts team. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasser. Oliver?
Hopefully this is Oliver Fisher, not Oliver.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Oliver Fisher. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau, where I'm chief of the International Program Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. And now Olivier?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning from Washington, D.C. So I'm a demographer. I'm Olivier Duprier, and I'm lead statistician and special advisor to the chief statistician at the World Bank, working mostly on data management, dissemination, and analytics. Thank you, and very happy to be part of this group.
Merci, Olivier. And we have Patrick, my neighbor.
Hello, I'm Patrick Gerland from the Population Division of the United Nations, and I lead the team responsible for the World Population Prospect. And as part of our team, we have also Thomas Purenberg, who could not join us right now, but we will be representing our division. Oh, Thomas is there, sorry.
Merci, Patrick. Paul Ngugi, apologies, I don't know.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Paul Waweru. I work for Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I'm in Population and Social Statistics Directorate, and I'm also in charge of census dataset. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see our own Predrag.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Predrag Savic, also part of the Demographic Statistics section at UNSD. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Predrag. And Richard?
Hello, everyone. I'm Richard McMahon, Head of Social and Demographic Statistics in the Central Statistics Office in Ireland, and really happy to be involved in these proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mauricio Rodriguez Abru?
Yes, hello everyone. I am Mauricio Rodriguez. I work for the National Institute of Statistics in Mexico, INEGI, and I am the General Director for Sociodemographic Statistics. I'm really happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Gracias, Mauricio. Salah Al-Muzami? No? Okay, maybe later. No, you are here? Salah? No.
Salah from GCC Stat.
Yeah, well, maybe later. Sanjay?
Hello, good evening from India. I am Sanjay. I am by profession a statistician, but in India, this census work is being conducted by the Office of the Registrar General of India under the Ministry of Home Affairs. I am looking after a great discussion during next 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Sanjay. Sarpono?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarpono, Director of Census and Survey Methodology Development, Statistics Nation. Nice to meet you all, and thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And I should have acknowledged that also Indonesia is staying up late to help us with the recommendation. So big thanks to all of you on that side of the world. Seifi, our own Seifi.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Saifet Adesi, a statistician at UNSD in the Demographic and Social Statistics branch. I work in the census program along with Miriam and Andrew, and we will be the core team at UNSD under the leadership of Francesca, who will be supporting the work of the revision of the PNR. I've been bombarding you with emails, so expect to keep getting more emails from me. I hope we will have a fruitful discussion over these 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophie. Papa?
Senegal, Papa, Sene Papa.
No, maybe later. Don't worry, you'll have other chances to introduce yourself. We have a Tapiwa.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Tapiwa Jamba. I'm with the UNFPA census team at headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you, Tapiwa. Thomas?
Good morning. My name is Thomas Pornberg. I'm with the United Nations Population Division, and I'm coordinating the work of the Demographic Analysis section.
Thank you, Thomas. And I have David.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from Luxembourg. I'm David Thorogood. I'm the senior expert for population censuses and also for demography at Eurostat, the statistical office of the European Union. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you, David. And almost there, we have Vijay Kumar.
Hello, everyone. I am Vijay Kumar from India, working for the Office of Registrar General India.
I feel honored to be part of this expert group, and I take this opportunity to convey my gratitude to Mr. Tedsi for keeping us all updated every moment. Thank you.
Thank you. William? From ECA, William Muwawa? No, maybe later. And finally, Yusuf Al-Riyami.
Hello, everyone. I am Yusuf Al-Riyami, Director General of National Statistics in the National Center for Statistics and Information from Oman. I'm happy to be in this group. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I just saw that maybe Javier Mancero joined. Javier, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, good morning, good afternoon. I am Javier Mancero, Chief of the Social Statistics Unit of the Statistics Division of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean.
Thank you so much. And yes, so this is all. Of course, it took us some time because there are many people with us, but that just give you a sense of the importance of the work ahead. There are 66 people that will be with us or more that will be with us over the next 3 days. So Francesca, maybe, yes?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Francesca. My name is Simara Zeredo. I am a statistician. I'm the field president of Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. I'm in charge of the census in Brazil. After 9 months, we are finishing the demographic census the next Sunday. It's been a big challenge, but we are. I'm sure that it will be a success. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Apologies, I missed you. Probably you just came in a little bit later. But we all look forward to working with all of you, and there will be plenty of opportunities for you to share your experience. We really want to learn from you, from what you did in the last round of censuses, to make sure that as we revise this current set of recommendations, we really build on the fantastic experience that it's out there. Okay, so do we take a picture now, Sefi, and then we start moving into the substantive sessions? So if you can all open your cameras, our colleagues will try to take a snapshot of all of us.
Hello?
Francesca, we have about 3
Papa.
people that have joined.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have Senegal, we have ECA, we have Ali. So
yeah, Papa, apologies. Papa, you have the floor. Papa from Senegal. Papa? Again, don't worry, there will be a lot of opportunities. I think we want to go into the discussion. We are ready with the session 2 as per the agenda. But before, if someone can give me a sign, did you manage to get a nice picture of the group?
Everyone, may I remind you to turn on your cameras, please? I think there are a lot of people who have not turned on their cameras. Could you please turn on your cameras, everyone? So we can take the group picture quickly and move on to the substantive sessions of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, big smile. I think we are all good to go. So with that, let's move to session 2. I'm going to give the floor to Tapiwa. I believe you are going to lead us into the substantive discussion, and where we will talk about major challenges and lessons learned from the 2020 round of censuses.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Francesca. I think, well, colleagues, welcome to session 2. In this session, we will review the major challenges, as well as the lessons learned in the implementation of the 2020 round of population and housing censuses. We will also get highlights of challenges that were encountered, which should be addressed as part of the revision work, and on which guidance should be provided as we revise the P&R for the 2030 round of census. In the session, we are going to kick off the session with some brief presentations. Please allow me to invite our first presenter from UNSD. I think it's Miriam. Over to you, Miriam.
Thank you, Tapiwa. Let me share my presentation. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes. Yes.
Probably it's not in the... Okay. I hope now it is presentation mode.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Dear colleagues, now we are going to, I'm on the behalf of the census team here at UNSD, I would like to give you a brief summary of our findings. So what were the challenges we had during this round, and what are the lessons really we learned during this round? So all these points that I will bring to your attention actually be derived from our activities. So we have a continuous monitoring the implementation of 2020 census program. So in my presentation, I will briefly talk about our methodological framework, not only the PNR, but we have a series of methodological guidelines. And also I will give some main points that we observed regarding the challenges and lessons learned. And finally, I will give a few examples of how we can address these lessons that we learned in the revised PNR. As you know, we are implementing the census program for 6 decades, and we are now close to 7 decades. So it's a long, historical experiences as UNSD has. A main role is really producing the international standards and recommendations, developing the methodological guidelines, and we have also programmed to monitor, continues to monitor the implementation of census activities. And this round, yes, we were having a big challenge to implement the census activities during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this will be the actually main core point that we are going to discuss here, how it affected the census implementation. We are organizing also capacity building activities. This is actually the very good the opportunity for us to get a specific country experiences and document some good practices. And also we are reporting all the progress to the CESCR Commission every year. So this is a full list of our methodological documents and guidelines. So you can see that principle and recommendations for censuses is the heart of this whole framework. So whatever we revise in this principle and recommendation will have impact on the other handbooks and technical reports. We in this round, we produce the 4 new handbook or technical documents. One is on the measuring international migration through censuses, and we also developed the guidelines on the use of electronic data collection technologies in conducting censuses. And we have technical report on measuring SDG indicators through census data. And finally, recently, we produced handbook on register-based population housing censuses, which discuss mainly how we can transfer to the other approaches from traditional census. This handbook, rely on the existing international guidelines produced by our colleagues at UNECE, and also we try to incorporate the country practices that we already have in different regions of the world. And this is the one graph that I would like to show you how the pandemic conditions affected the census schedule. So the gray bars of this graph, as you know, shows the number of countries that plan to conduct the census. It was the gray bar shows the situation just before the pandemic. You can see that as expected, I mean, almost all the census rounds had a similar type of census schedule. The peak year was planned in 2020, and another peak year was 2021. Mostly European countries conduct the census in this year. But because of the arrival of pandemic, we have now completed different schedule. The orange bar shows the real situation. The many countries postponed their censuses, particularly in year 2020 and 2021. Therefore, we have many countries actually they conducted the census in later stage. So this brings the question of periodicity of the census implementation and how this will affect also the census schedule of next round, 2030 round. We also observed during the pandemic, actually countries tried to modify the census procedures to reduce the impact of the adverse impact of the pandemic. So the countries extended the duration of enumeration, sometimes more than 6 months, sometimes a year, to improve the coverage of the enumerated population. So again, the question is, what extent those censuses that conducted in a long period of time, it means with one of the essential features of simultaneity of the census operation. Another important observation that we have, the countries adapted the new mode of data collection depending with the self-enumeration, for example, online questionnaire, to reduce the direct contact with the responses. Again, because of the use of multimodal data collection, the countries also mentioned the concerns about the coverage and non-response that might be higher than the previous round. Multimodal data collection again is one of the lessons that we learned this round. Many countries actually use the copy and the paper questionnaire at the same time. Finally, the one more observation that we had, countries they conducted the census during the pandemic. We observed that many people changed their place of residence during the pandemic, and also the pandemic conditions may have an effect on the census results. So the question arises again: the census that conducted during the pandemic, how they could be comparable with the previous the results of the previous censuses. So this round also give a high intention on the high cost of census operation and increasing coverage error. So countries have a big challenge to conduct the census with this high cost, and also the cost particularly affected by the large number of the field staff because population increase in many countries, and also because of the depending on the technology to modernize the census process, it affects also the increase the census cost. Regarding the coverage of the enumeration, this is enumerated population. This is also another primary concerns of census experts, because now we have more and more reluctant to participate in enumeration. Response burden is another issue when we have a long questionnaire. And the countries that they have unsecure areas, they are not able to enumerate the population living those areas. And some population groups are difficult to reach and enumerate. All these, the points will be discussed in the next revision, and how we can provide a better guidance to countries to improve the census coverage. As we talked before, since last 20-30 census rounds, we see increasing dependency on the use of technology in conducting censuses. All census processes actually have been affected by the use of technology. This provides many advantages, of course, to improve the data quality. At the same time, it has many challenges in terms of building the capacity and the cost of the census. And we are expecting that this dependency will continue to the increase in the next round. And as recently we had a new the activities that we have, particularly to integrate the census data with the geospatial information. This will be the topics that maybe we need to discuss more detail and provide better guidance to countries. One example, yes, this is the one, the results from our surveys. We regularly conduct the surveys to compile the information about the country practices. So in the survey that we conducted in 2019, we observed that the many countries, about 70% of the countries actually either collected or planning to collect in that time in 2019, the geographical location at the building level. And when we asked the question on how many countries planning to produce grid-based outputs, we saw really less interest, although they are countries planning to collect the georeference information at the building level, but we don't see the same type of interest to produce the grid-based outputs. So we are thinking that this could be included in our discussions when we are talking about how we can produce better guidance for the next round. Another important observation from this round is that we see many interest really to use the administrative register for producing census data. This is one graph from our survey that we conducted recently. It compares the number of countries, proportion of countries by census methodology. You can see that we see significant decline in the proportion of countries that they are conducting census with traditional method, and then increase in the combined census methodology. So there are big shift from traditional census to the combined census methodology. We are expecting that this trend will continue. Even maybe we will have higher proportion higher proportion for the combined census methodology. And the few points regarding how we can address the lessons or observation that we got during this census round, how we can reflect these lessons to the next round. So we see that we need to provide a better guidance on how to gradually move to the register-based approaches, particularly how we can assess the quality of existing administrative registers, how we can develop a roadmap for the transition process, and also how we can start using administrative data to support the traditional census. And also, as UNSD globally, we are implementing other programs like the civil registration, vital statistics, and legal identity. We are also would like to discuss how we can integrate the administrative registers, population register, particularly with civil registration and legal identity, and then this could be maybe another the recommendation for countries if they are planning to use administrative register for censuses. As I mentioned before, integration of geospatial information with census data is another important topic that we think that will be discussed extensively. Not only the integration of census data, but this integrated data can be used for enhancing data analysis, the calculation of some indicators, and also adoption of the new definition of urbanization, degree of urbanization, and producing grid-based census outputs. depending on the lessons that we learned and during this round, we saw that the existing PNR does not provide good guidance to countries on the emergency and contingency plans and risk management. This will be covered. And also we see a lot of interest on the adoption of online questionnaire when relevant. So probably the next revision would cover more discussion on this topic. Also, these countries are interested in using the administrative data sources. This may have impact on the existing definition of population and census methodologies. So this will be part of our discussion. And also another observation that we have, countries, when they cannot cover the whole geographical areas in the country, they may use estimation methods, population estimation methods, to provide the reliable data on the total population. So this could be covered in the next revision. Maybe how we would like to discuss this, how we can introduce the population estimation methods in the context of conducting population census. And the final point is regarding the mobile positioning data. We observed the really interest from many countries, and already there are some real experiences at different countries. So we would like to discuss also whether a mobile positioning data could be potential, another data source to support the population housing census. For example, to use it for estimating the population in some areas that it was not possible to cover in the field enumeration, and whether we can use this for validation of the census results. Yeah, this is end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't take a lot of time. Let me
well, thank
stop
you.
sharing.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Colleagues, I think we have two more much briefer presentations. So if you have any questions or comments, please hold on to them so that we will just have one discussion at the end. So let me invite the next presenter, Alessio. Over to you.
Thank you, Tapiwa. Sharing my screen. Hope you can see my screen in slideshow mode.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I am presenting on behalf of the UNFPA team. In fact, this presentation has been compiled with inputs from our colleagues from the region, a number of them part of this meeting today. I believe most of you are familiar with the work that UNFPA does. We support population and housing censuses in about 150 countries through a network of country offices and our 6 regional offices. We are guided by the principles and recommendation and support their implementation across a range of different activities spanning from census planning, cartographic mapping, data collection, census analysis, dissemination, and so on. And we provide both technical support as well as operational and logistical support, particularly in the acquisition of some census assets, technology, and so on. I think I can basically skip this one just to, this has already been shown by Miriam, the significant delays in the census schedule still in 2023 and 2024. And the majority of the census that will be conducted are censuses that have been postponed from previous years. So there is still significant backlog of censuses that need to be conducted in this round. And just also to emphasize that there are 15 countries for which there is no scheduled date for the census in this round. So some of these large countries for which we may end up not having a census at the end of the round. We have our own internal monitoring system for tracking country needs. This is mostly operationalized through our network of regional and country offices. When we asked about what are the main challenges that countries are facing, funding comes up as by far as the most reported one, followed by insufficient technical capacities. There's a number of other challenges mentioned there, but I will go a little bit more into these in the second part of my presentation. Just now to show that for the countries for which we have trends data on the census cost, we can see that mostly there has been an increase in the census cost. These are nominal values, so unadjusted for the inflation. In some countries, the increasing census cost has been mostly the result of inflation. However, in other countries, it has been pushed by population growth, in particular by the larger scale of the census, and I'm referring here in particular to some African countries that you see on the right of this chart. I have here a list of challenges that have been reported as part of the consultation that we conducted for compiling this presentation. A lot of those have already been mentioned by Miriam, so I don't think I need to go too much into the details here, and you'll see there's significant overlap between what is here and what UN Statistics Division has just presented. Certainly, there were a number of technical challenges related to the adoption of new data collection methodologies, multimode data collection, the consolidation of responses from different methods, the adoption of new technology, ICT technology, and GIS technologies. Countries that have started using administrative data sources, of course, reconciling this with census enumeration has been a challenge. There have been some challenges related to the capacity of the stats offices. Typically, staff turnover is actually always a challenge from one round to the next. Miriam has also already mentioned the impact of the changes in the distribution of the population for enumeration conducted at the time of COVID, the high non-response rate that required extension of enumeration period, some difficulty in the comparison of results from previous censuses, particularly for countries that have shifted to different types of methodologies. Some countries have also shifted from de facto to de jure approach in conducting the census. And ultimately, with the increase in the collection of georeference data, we haven't seen a similar scale up in the use of georeference data in analysis and dissemination. And I think this is one of the lessons for us to look ahead at the next round. A number of other challenges relate to the census operations. Of course, I've mentioned funding issues, but also sometimes the delays in the disbursement of funds affected the census schedule. There were significant disruptions in global supply chains that have delayed census procurements. Some of that still affecting countries even in a post-COVID time. There's been issues with access, of course, deployment of enumerators, both related to COVID and health concerns, but also in some cases due to political instability, conflict, and violence in some of the countries. We continue to see examples of politicization of census results that risk to undermine the institutional credibility of some of the census agencies. But also for the first time, we are seeing new type of challenges, for example, in census communication, and the fact that for the first time, social media were massively used in census communication campaigns to promote the use of the census, but also there was a need to counteract opposition narratives against the census, including fake news that were trying to discredit the census. And new concerns have emerged in terms of cybersecurity. For example, in some countries, even with mistrust of external software applications that were not developed in the country. Looking ahead, we certainly need to be cognizant that there has been a deteriorating global financing landscape for censuses and official statistics in general, and therefore there's a need to identify cost-efficient approaches for census processes. Big opportunities are offered by leveraging administrative data sources in census processes, as many countries are already doing. It is important to continue to maximize the use of census data, including of the georeference data that have been collected through the censuses in census dissemination. And last but not least, as many censuses are conducted in situations of crisis, it is important to position also the census as a source of data, of humanitarian data in crisis, and perhaps looking ahead, strengthening the role of the census as a source of climate and population vulnerability data, particularly in crisis-affected countries. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'll leave it here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alessio. Let's quickly move on to our third and final brief presentation from the US Census Bureau International Program Center. Over to you, Mitali, I believe.
Hi, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
And hear me too, right?
Maybe you could make it, put it in presentation mode.
Oh.
Okay.
Is it in presentation mode or no? How is it now?
Okay, yeah, it's good now. Thank you.
Okay, so I can't see anybody in this mode. So let me know if, oops, where am I? What do you see?
We see your email.
Okay, now?
We are back to the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'm also going to present on challenges and lessons learned, and I'm sorry I'm going to actually echo everything that you heard from Miriam and Alessio. In a way, it's good because that means that we're all speaking in the same voice and having the same experience. So it's validating. So I will cover a little bit 2020 census round. As you heard, new technologies and methodologies were expected to be used, some COVID-19 related challenges, and then other challenges, lessons learned, and then looking forward to 2030. So the two main shifts that we observed in the 2020 round of censuses is firstly moving to GIS and imagery into the field, developing digital frames for coverage, and number two, shifting to multi-mode censuses. From PAPI, many countries shifted to CAPI, and some even shifted to CAWI. I must actually state some caveats to my presentation. We focus mainly on low and middle income countries, so my observations are more relevant to them. Number two, I only cover some challenges because 5 minutes is not enough for covering all challenges. And number three, many of our countries have not yet gotten to the dissemination phase, and so we have limited observations on that. So the COVID-19 related challenges, as you heard, it delayed censuses. It also delayed actually the advocacy for censuses to leaders. Budgets were shifted from census to health, so it's reduced budgets. And in order for countries to be able to do it on schedule, they started crashing schedules. So there was a rush. Mapping often slowed or stalled completely thanks to COVID-19. Some suffered a long gap between mapping and enumeration, which has serious consequences. They mapped it before the pandemic and then they enumerated after the pandemic. Budgets and supply chains issues affected procurement, as you heard from both Miriam and Alessio. Data capture applications were developed in a rush. This did result in quality concerns. Enumeration issues also due to the movement or displacement of respondents, just the quality of respondent coverage was not good. Also, there were challenges due to safety protocols and shutdowns in enumeration. These are challenges now that are not part of the COVID. The other challenges that we noticed in this round is really there's insufficient early advocacy for the census. And then there is a pressure our LMIC countries feel to use the latest technologies without adequate planning, budget, and qualified staff. Retirements, generational retirements happen. It leads to loss of census knowledge, and there is very less succession planning. In terms of mapping, there were a lot of countries that had a really late start in mapping, and they don't have the ideal time limit, time period by which they can complete map it and then do the census. Access to satellite imagery has been a concern, lack of training in demarcation or verification. And what all this results in is that there is an incomplete list of geocodes before the census. So geocode lists, especially at the lowest levels of geography, villages, localities, were not fully demarcated. This really makes it problematic when you integrate the data. Other challenges were in the data processing as countries have moved to CAPI and CAWI. Of course, the cost budgets were blowing up. There was also a different workflow, limited collaboration between subject matter, mapping, and IT when they're developing the app. There was definitely a lack of testing the application, the system, or the tablets. Questionnaire changes and application changes happened till the last moment in many of our countries. Again, this was because everybody's trying to rush to get to the census date. And then there is a pervasive false assumption that if you use high technology, high tech, it results in perfect data. So minimal editing is required, which now we are going through all the edits and we are finding not to be the case. Some countries tried to use brought in a new angle at gender, third gender. So that has resulted without testing their questions. And I don't think that has resulted in very good data. And then lack of strategic dissemination plan. There's a pressure just because they're using technology to release all census data products within a year. And this really affects quality. Weak disclosure avoidance methods used, inadequate census product review systems in place in the countries we work in. So for the 2030 round of censuses, in planning and management, we think we need strong NSO leadership to advocate for the census really early, especially, that affects timing and budget. Census project documents also reflected though they reflected technologies to be used and budget, we found that there was not enough detail in the new methodology, in the quality assurance procedures that were going to be used and risk management plans. So this we need to do better for the 2030 round of censuses. With respect to adoption of new technologies and methodologies, whether it's GIS, CAPI, web interface, adoption of new technologies requires adequate time, resources, and trained staff, and also better change control processes. Geocodes, again, I want to reiterate, creation of comprehensive, nested, and unique geocodes at lowest levels of geography before the census is really important. And I think it speaks to the dissemination where you have less georeference dissemination because they don't have good geocoded data before the census. Risk management, as has been mentioned, we need more robust plans to manage risks in the 2030 round of censuses and a stronger system of written procedures and documentation. Looking forward to the 2030 census round, I think countries are going to want to use computer-assisted web interface. And we really, for LMICs, we think UN needs to provide caution and guidance because it is a major effort to produce CAWI apps. But if you're going to count only 1% or 3% of the population, is the cost really worth it? Increased use of administrative registers, again, in the LMICs may or may not be ready. So UN needs to provide caution and guidance on how best to use them, what are the minimal conditions required, and as you know, they can be used in combination with traditional censuses as well as replacing censuses to be just register-based. I think UN also needs a guidance on new topics. Their inclusivity has become important. So how do we perhaps propose, how do we measure gender? Another thing we saw this round is many countries wanted to conflate the national ID, digital ID system with the census or collect biomarkers. And I think the next 2030, there will be more demand for this as countries are getting to national IDs. And I think we need to address that. Methodology, better guidance and training on the counting, hard to count population, which Miriam also mentioned. We really need better guidance on homeless, areas of conflict, violence, nomadic populations. I think we don't do an adequate job right now. Dissemination, a more robust census dissemination platform that is controlled by NSO. And then creating platforms that allow the use of census data in application programming interface so that they can combine with other data. And then guidance on incorporating EGRIS's recommendations for refugees, internally displaced persons, and stateless population, possibly field testing of these questions. Looking forward to the 2030 round. And with that, thank you very much for your attention. And I look forward to discussions.
Thank you very much, Mitali, and once again, thank you to all our three presenters. Let me open up to the floor for any reactions, any questions or comments. I'm not sure how to check if there are any hands raised or expression of interest to take the floor.
Participants may raise their hands to indicate your interest in
to
intervene. Yeah.
So it's open for comments, questions, any types of reactions. Okay, I see. Okay, Thomas, please go ahead.
I have one question, both for the presenter, and thank you for your presentation, and also for the general audience. COVID happened, it was something nobody expected, unusual in history or modern history. Is there a need to reflect that in the PNR, or is it something we need to develop another manual typically for crisis and emergency situation? So I don't know what's your view and how to best address that. And yeah, just want to hear feedback from colleagues.
Okay, great. An important point to raise, Thomas. I think it's a, like you say, do we need a separate manual altogether, or is there a way we can take this into account as we revise? Thank you. Let's see if do we have any any other hands?
We have a hand from India, Mr. Sanjay.
Mr. Sanjay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So all the three presentations were very nice. As one of the presentation, it was reflected that we are tackling with a non-response. There are two kinds of non-response. One, the persons are not willing to answer, not wanting that people should come there, and he is required to answer the question. But also there are some questions which are difficult in nature, because the enumerators are generally part-time. We are not able to train them in a very short span of time. So difficult questions answer is not correct. So it is the response, incorrect response due to the framing of the questions. So we can also, if incorporate those, it would be good. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me see. Do we have any other hands? If not, okay. Yes, Olivia, please, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tapiwa. We have seen in many countries some attempts to introduce new technologies or some innovation in the context of population census. And as the presentations made it clear, this can be really challenging. It's also very risky in some cases. So I was just wondering to what extent recommendations could also recommend or at least suggest that these innovations be introduced in the survey programs that will be implemented between now and the next census. There are a lot of things, I mean, the use of cloud computing, the API data dissemination that Mitali just mentioned, and many other things, you know, real-time quality control using these, these new technologies, all that could and should be implemented in household surveys. And if this is done, I think the countries will already have at least some capacity, some experience with this innovation. So I was just wondering to what extent the recommendations could also be coordinated with the guidelines provided by the large survey programs. And again, I'm talking mostly about capacity constrained countries. But we have DHS, we have MIX, we have SMS, we have labor force surveys. So a lot is happening also in the sample survey programs that, you know, I think we should take into account and use to reduce the risk of introducing innovation in census. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Olivier. I see a couple more hands now. I think Michelle was first. Let me give you the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. So first of all, thanks for the very interesting presentation from the panelists. I remember from the UN SD presentation, a slide on integration of geospatial information with census data, referring to a survey in 2019. Is there any ex post assessment on the typology of dissemination tools that are actually coming with this new round of census? So I remember population grids, microdata, interactive online data sets. So now that the census are being conducted, is there a way to check the progress made ex post? Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Job, over to you. Job Morse.
Thank you. I think there is also the issue of disposal of the tablets that are being procured for use in censuses that is really becoming an issue going forward, and it needs to be addressed such that the countries are guided well. And also the questionnaires are growing big and big as time goes by, and hence affecting the quality of census data. So how do we guide the countries to ensure that they limit the questions that are getting into the census, and we advise to really include the core and some of the non-core, but as they prioritize on their areas of interest, we need to have a limit of the questions that goes into census, because the questionnaires are really growing big and big with time, and that is affecting the quality of census data collected across the globe. There's also these new concepts that are coming in, like the pre-enumeration listing of households, which we may need to advise at some point to what extent is it done, because we have seen countries, some doing like 2 days to census, some doing like a week to census. The variables that they get into the pre-enumeration questionnaire, there are some countries that have like 3 variables: the household name, GPS coordinates, and maybe the usual number of household members, and that's all. But we have others that have a lengthy questionnaire, so, and it takes time. So it's something that is coming up, and we really need to advise going forward. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I think we've had a number of questions. Maybe we give an opportunity to the presenters to react. I have noted, I thought there were 2 more hands. I was going to take them in the next round. So let's come back to the presenters. Would you, I mean, any of you 3, does anyone want to take the floor to respond to these questions? Maybe we start with Miriam.
Okay. Thank you so much for all really good questions. I've tried to answer each of them. So Thomas asked the question that whether do we need separate guidelines on risk management and contingency plan. So we will discuss this issue in the expert group. But our opinion is, as a census team here at UNST, to provide the guidance on this in the PNR, because it's part of it should be planned in advance. So it will be maybe part of the census planning preparations and management. So we could address the how this is important, what are the how we can understand the potential leaks, how we can analyze the potential risk, how we can monitor those risks, and what will be the structure management, the structure to respond to this risks. So this would be one topic that we are planning to cover in the next revision of the PNR. But anyway, after we have the initial discussions and maybe revise the PNR, including this topic. But if we see that there is a need to have a more detailed discussions on guidelines, maybe the group may have a decision on producing additionally the guidelines or handbook or something. But I have no idea in this stage. Regarding the non-response from India, yes, this is getting a big challenge, right, in many countries actually. So what we could maybe discuss better. So how we can analyze the non-responses in terms of the under coverage or over coverage, how we can better analyze this coverage error. This should be again planned in advance. When we are planning the census procedures, we should have a good idea of how at the end, how we will analyze the quality of coverage. We see if this is not considered in the planning phase, then at the end, actually, we don't have the data or to analyze the coverage level. So it's not just other data sources that we can use, but we can design census procedures to understand our non-response, what housing units, households, they haven't responded to census questionnaire. We didn't get any response. So those kind of things, I believe, will be discussed much better in coming days. Regarding the use of technology, yes, Olivier, I think this has been discussed when we were preparing the guidelines on use of electronic data collection technologies, and this was one of the recommendation in the guideline, that countries, if they are planning to use new technology in the census, they should have extensive test. Also use this technology in other data sources, also surveys, to build an experience, to establish experiences within the NSO or census agency. Yeah, I think I answer. If I miss any question, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Mitali. Alessio, do you want to come in on any of the questions?
Maybe just briefly on the issue raised by Thomas. You know, the intersection of multiple crises and how they affect the census, and I think for me this is definitely something to reflect on and to focus on as part of this discussion. I don't know if we need a separate handbook for that, but the thing is, this is really a multifaceted issue, because on the one hand, as already alluded to by Mariam, it is a matter of adapting census methodologies in crisis situations, and of course having strong contingency plans in place, potentially combining enumeration with population estimates for areas where enumeration is not possible, and with the use of geospatial technology, we can do that, and some countries have already been doing that. But there is, I think, overall, the issue of making the census a useful data source for data, for crisis data, and this has to do with collecting data on specifically vulnerable groups to crisis. We talked about implementation of the EGRIS recommendations, for example, so making the census a source of data on displacement, both internal and international. And there is increasingly the possibility to use the census as in combination with other data sources to produce humanitarian, data on humanitarian data on populations affected by crisis, in combination with projections, in combination with other displacement data, and so on and so forth. So it is also a matter for me of positioning the census increasingly strongly as a data source in humanitarian settings, and this is an effort that we should try and address here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alessio. Mitali?
Yes, so I'll just speak to, I agree with Miriam and Alessio, very good points. And we recently helped Malawi with using their census georeference data for Cyclone Freddy, which, many lives were lost. So that's a good application of their census data. Fortunately, they did it before the pandemic, so they had access to data. So to address length of questionnaire, I think this actually goes back to, again, strong leadership and the ability to advocate for the census and the ability to actually push back stakeholders who want to load the census questionnaire with many, many questions, which should ideally be asked in a survey. We see this constantly in countries. I think NSO leadership doesn't feel strong enough to push back stakeholders. And I think there's real requirement for planning and management training and training at higher levels on how to advocate for the census and how to resist pressure, whether it's political pressure or pressure to include questions. And the second response I wanted to give was to India, where they're talking about refusals. And I think Miriam made a great point on in the planning phase, you should plan for refusals and what you're going to do with data and which kinds of sectors of the population are the refusals are coming from. But also another important thing that, at least at the US Census Bureau, we take very seriously is 4 to 5 years before the census, we start engaging the populations, the communities. We have stakeholders, but not necessarily always government stakeholders, engaging communities and educating them on how they would benefit if they answer the census. So integrated communication plans that are put in place by parties that are not seen as, partisan needs to be happening. And I think there's not enough in UN PNR on integrated communication plans. So this was another area I think that we need to work on. And finally, I did want to say about conflict areas. Increasingly the world in this census round, we've noticed compared to last census round, more and more countries are experiencing conflict. So yes, we can do population estimates, but it is not clear how those estimates relate back to the enumerated data and how do we combine those to really make it workable. So I think those are areas not only we need to strengthen capacity, but we need to make recommendations. Thank you, Tapiwa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mitali. And I think it's an important point that you just raised at the end there, that in many countries that are mostly stable, you do have these pockets of instability, and we need to say something about how this can be addressed if they are able to do a census in the rest of the country. There are two issues that I think have not been touched, which were raised. One is on the disposal of tablets. I would assume that in this 2020 census round, there is a lot of lessons, I think, that has been, that we can learn from countries and the modalities, what they do with the tablets. And there's also the issue of the pre-enumeration listing of households. And indeed, I think, Job, as you said, there is, there is a lot of variation in how countries approach the pre-enumeration household listing. Maybe it's something that we also need to look at going forward. Okay, so I have two questions, and I see we are already 2 minutes over time, but let me allow the two questions, and then we can bring the session to a close. So I'll give the floor to Jeff first. That's Canada.
Thank you, Tapawa. I really appreciated the presentations this morning, and I think that there's lots of insights there that will help us with the development of the PNR for the 2030 round. Many shared experiences in Canada that you're referring to in each of the decks. So thank you for that. There's a few things that I wanted to highlight from the Canadian experience that might help for the PNR as well, and that I'm sure other countries experienced during COVID. First of all, on the positive side of things, certainly COVID forced us into the work from home mode. That has taught us that it is possible to reduce our office and building footprint when we administer our field operations in Canada. I'm sure that that's something that other countries have experienced as well. And certainly for the 2026 census, we'll be leasing and renting less space for the field operations. So that's a positive thing. A couple of on the sort of more negative side of things, it was certainly clear to us during our field operations in 2021 that the hard to enumerate populations became even more difficult to enumerate. And two specifically that we're focusing on right now in our development for the next census are the Indigenous population in Canada, where many live in very remote parts of the country and in communities that are semi-autonomous or self-governing, as well as collective dwellings and nursing homes, hospitals, that sort of thing, where we really had to back off on the extent of our collection in 2021. This vulnerable population we're going to put more emphasis on in 2026, partly because we couldn't collect enough information in 2021. So there's going to be a reaction in the design for the 2026 census to the COVID situation in 2021 for nursing homes, hospitals, et cetera, the collective dwellings that are so difficult to enumerate. Anyway, I wanted to leave those comments on the table for folks to think about. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, thanks for flagging the issue of the hard to enumerate populations. And COVID-19 taught us a lot. I think there's a lot that we are going to take forward in some way. Let me give the floor to our final colleague to share an intervention. Fabiana, please.
Thank you very much. Really excellent presentation. The three presentation reflects what is happening in Latin American countries. And I just want to refer to three issues. One is that recruitment is being a big problem in Latin America's countries. For example, in some countries, the extension of the enumeration period was due to lack of interviewers, a very high turnover, both in countries that paid a fixed amount and that paid piece work. I mean that recruitment, I don't know if in another region they have the same problems. And regarding the budget, on some occasions, it was not necessarily reduced. On the contrary, the example of Chile was already shown. It was a problem with a lack of flexibility in internal regulations and administrative rules that are required in every census. And this is a big problem also because significantly affect the schedule of the programming of a census. And finally, I would like to say that in our region, the participation of civil society or indigenous organization, Afro-descendant organization, and so on, increasingly, significantly. So in the planning, taking into account participation of these different groups is a big challenge also. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, colleagues. I see there is also a question posted in chat by Matthias, which I will just read quickly. Regarding census length, it is important to have a strong position in PNR in terms of maintaining the size of the questionnaire to a minimum. Okay, I think he is just reinforcing the point that has been raised by Job about the fact that the questionnaires are becoming longer and longer. But this is noted. Let me quickly, we really need to close because we are already almost 8 minutes over time. Let me get back to my panelists. Any final words that you want to say before we close this session? Please. Any of the panelists that has a final words? If not, that is also okay.
Not from me. I've just responded to one of the points from Fabiana in chat.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So I think, colleagues, thank you so much. I think, the questions and the reactions, this give us issues that we need to flag as we go along with the revision process. There are a lot of important points that were raised, which I will not try to summarize again. But I think this was just to highlight some of the issues that we need to take into account. So many thanks to our panelists and many thanks to all of you colleagues for the follow-up questions and comments that you have raised. So I think we will take a break to a coffee break. I'm not sure, Safe, how long is the break now?
So thank you, Tapiwa, for chairing session 2. And thank you also for the contributors. I think in the program, we have planned a 10-minute coffee break, but I wonder if participants would like to actually take these 10 minutes, or let's proceed with the session and then we can finish early. Maybe we can take the 10-minute break at the end. If there is a strong opinion, preference for one, for having the coffee break now or for having it later, please indicate your preference. If anybody doesn't say anything, then I would assume you would rather have the coffee break at the end. So I'm not seeing any reactions. So let's assume the preference of the vast majority of participants is to go ahead with the next session and to have our coffee break at the end. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we will now move to session 3. Session 3 will be chaired by our colleague Fiona from the UN ECE. Fiona, please take the floor and lead us into section 3.
Thank you so much, Seifi. Now you've taken me a little by surprise, so I have to just get my document up on my screen. There we go. I'm not going to share anything with you, just so that I know what to introduce. So thank you for asking me to lead this session. As Seifi said, this is a session about innovations, developments, good practices, all the new stuff that has been happening in the census round of 2020. There's a lot to get through in this session. I've got a whistle-stop tour of the entire census process here. We're going to hear from Canada, the USA, Kenya, the Netherlands, Malaysia, and Ireland. So in the interest of time, I'm going to ask the first presenter if he has his slides ready. He may have had to just go and seek them out. And I'm going to hand over to Jeff from Statistics Canada, who's going to give us a 5-minute presentation about planning census operations in Canada. So if you are ready, Jeff, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fiona. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Yes, so I'm going to talk to you very quickly. 5 minutes, I know, is a very short period of time to describe planning operations in the census in Canada. I'm going to focus on how we manage risks and plan our contingency planning. And I'm going to give some specifics related to COVID and lessons learned there. So I'll go through this very quickly. First of all, in order to manage risks and plan operations properly, of course, you need good governance. This is the basic structure of the governance in the Canadian context. We have, I'll start from the bottom. That's the group that I lead as census manager in Canada. Every Wednesday, I chair the census project team meeting. It's about a two-hour meeting every Wednesday. Very substantial agendas every single week. Serious meetings that we accomplish a lot during. I report to a census steering committee that meets every month. And then on top of that, our chief statistician and the assistant chief statisticians make up our senior management committee. The census project team is split into sub-projects. The various sub-projects cover all the dimensions of a census, from field operations planning to processing of the data to dissemination of the data, et cetera, communications. Everybody's at the table. This is a safe place, a place to land when there are emergencies, as we found during COVID. It is very important in any context, but especially with the census, to make sure that you're managing your risks properly prior to operations. So we put a great deal of emphasis on the early identification and ongoing evaluation of our strategic risks, and we focus on certain ones. So we can't focus on them all, there's too many. And we establish a project risk register. This is the list of all the risks. We document mitigations against those risks. We therefore assess the residual risk and plan for contingencies in case those risks do materialize and develop into issues. You need to adapt quickly when there are incidents that pop up or emergencies such as COVID. And I'll talk about that in a second. One of the things that I would say certainly happened during COVID was that we got a lot better in Canada at managing our risks and our contingency planning. And one of the new things that we added was walkthroughs or risk playbooks. These are sort of like run-throughs of situations that are designed to develop the muscle memory in case there are issues. This is a picture of my front porch. This is an early version of the Kanban board that we built. When COVID hit, we had about 7 or 8 months in order to adapt. Luckily, our census wasn't until 2021. So we had some time to adapt, but adapt in a way that we're very unused to in the census, that we couldn't adapt so quickly and test, for example. We had to introduce changes that went untested. But in order to manage this and put through a very fast workflow of changes into the census, we adopted the Kanban method. It's a lean management technique. It's represented by these stickies on my wall. Each sticky represented a major question that we had to answer in order to be ready for the COVID context of 2021. Each sticky had a big question on it. Each sticky had a color that was related to the sub-project that was responsible for responding to that. We ended up having, I think it was about 150 major questions that we had to ask ourselves. We took these questions to the census project team, that CPT meeting that I spoke of. Incident management, we also, of course, even though we plan the best that we can and develop contingencies, there are things that will happen in the field, as we all know, that occur that are unexpected. And so you have to have a way to manage these incidents. Our method is to assign a level for each incident that pops up. There's levels 1, 2, and 3. Each one has a different response. So a high risk incident will elicit a very fast and sudden response. One that is the lower risk incident will be resolved over a longer period of time. They're prioritized. Incidents are called by any member of the census project team The response is a decision that I make. Is it a quick response or slower response? If it's a quick response, then I call together the team urgently and we work on a plan. We had a number of risks that materialized into issues during the course of our field operations. None that turned out to be a major impediment to the success of the operation, but nevertheless, they could have been major issues, but turned out to be things that could be managed. A number, I think there were 3 times where I called the team together late in the evening because they were high-level incidents that, but we were able to respond quickly. Finally, I'm going to leave on this. During COVID, while we had all of these changes that we needed to make in Canada for the census in a COVID context, we were not sure whether or not they would work. And I said to the team, I want an insurance policy. If in the event that something doesn't work, then I want us to be able to back up the main plan with a plan B. And the plan B was to use administrative data. This is borrowed from, I guess, a couple of experiences. One in 2016, the census that we ran that year, there was a forest fire that destroyed a small city in northern Ontario, northern Alberta, and that in that response to that fire, we used administrative data to enumerate the population of that city. I was also thinking of the situation in New Zealand where they had to use a great deal of administrative data to improve the quality following some issues that they had in their most recent census, not the one that occurred this year, but the one previous. So a couple of examples that led us to this. At the end of the day, this contingency wasn't used. It was an insurance policy that wasn't used very much, although there were parts of the country that we couldn't enumerate properly because of COVID or because of a particularly bad forest fire season in our western provinces. About 12,000 of the 15.1 million dwellings in the country that we enumerate were we used administrative data for. Not a big impact overall, but a big impact for the local area data that are so needed by the census. That's it for me. I hope I kept it within the set time, Fiona. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Beautifully done. Well within the time and super useful, I think. If you'll permit me before we move on to the next presentation, I just think that this answers very nicely the question that was posed by Thomas and talked about a little bit in the last session was, do we need to have explicit guidance on risk management contingency planning in the PNR and in the CES recommendations? I think the answer we hear from countries is a resounding yes. And I think there is so much that can be learned from the Canadian experience and from others who have managed to kind of think this through in a very careful way. So thank you, Jeff. I'm now going to hand over to Deb Stempowski from the US Bureau of the Census, and she's going to talk about innovations in another stage of census planning. She's going to be talking about quality, and let me just get out my document because I can't remember what she's going to be talking about, quality assurance. So Deb, the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me okay, Fiona?
We can.
Okay, great. Nice to be here with everybody this morning. 1 second. Let's go to. All righty. So again, it's good to be here and talking about quality. So based on the United States timing and census, we were impacted with COVID in March of 2020. So all of a sudden, quality that we had built in all along became like right up on the radar for us. So quickly, I just want to brush over some of the things we did during the 2020 census and then what we're doing moving ahead to 2030 to refine and plan more of that in. So I think key on our efforts was really the establishment of a higher level senior committee that was responsible for ensuring quality was monitored, addressed, and so forth, and communicated externally, which I think is one of the bigger challenges and areas of opportunity as we move ahead. to the 2030 census. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these bullets here on their own slide. So I'm going to skip through that. The Fusion Center was something that we used extensively during COVID. And why was that? We were always pulling together information to look at, not only for operational reporting, but our Fusion Center would also bring in situational issues such as traditional weather problems, or maybe our internet system, monitoring that kind of thing. But when COVID hit us, we had a de facto group of people who became experts in monitoring COVID data. So this Fusion Center and bringing that kind of information together was key, because we could see the factors affecting our design that weren't just data collection operations per se. Moving ahead, we had then two kinds of review of the actual operational data. One was focusing on our decennial field operations, and those were done from the region. So while we monitor a lot of activities from headquarters, this was done in our 6 regional offices across the country, so they could put the contextual issues that might be encountered in, say, an American Indian tribal land, or a very rural part of the country, or remote Alaska, for example. So this field quality management allowed them to review data at a lower level than was done at headquarters, figure out what was going on, identify strategies for correction and remediation, and then ensure that those were implemented. So the field quality management was decentralized monitoring, and then the real-time analysis of data was actually the headquarters component of that modeling. And this is where we also tracked our self-response operations. So we could see not only how we were doing nationally, but how we were doing across the board at more detailed geographic levels. Our self-response data was regularly shared in previous censuses with the outside world on a daily basis. So here, the expectation was that we were going to start sharing more than just that self-response data kind of instantaneously when COVID hit. And that was challenging, but I think it's an opportunity moving ahead. We've always done this post-data quality assurance, where we're looking at information as we're processing data, we're comparing to benchmarks, we're looking at non-response rates, which we've already talked about a couple of times this morning. So this traditional review, though, had been once we were out of field data collection. So while we had a lot of opportunity to do some deep dives, it kind of bootstrapped us a little bit, because we didn't have the opportunity to go back into the field if we needed to for data collection. So looking at it at the micro level, where we were looking at individual records, and then at those macro level reviews as well, to try and figure out where we had quality challenges. But again, this was during post-collection. The operational metrics that I'm talking about right here were something that we've monitored internally for a long time. And with COVID-19 and questions about the quality of the census, we began releasing these metrics as we began releasing our actual data products from the census. So this was kind of uncharted territory for the US Census, but it was beneficial. We learned a lot doing it, and then we had a lot of eyes on us as well externally from looking at this kind of data. So this is something I know we'll build on moving ahead, and I think is a good example for countries in the 2030 round. Assessments and evaluations, moving to the bottom half. Topics on this screen. So we've always done operational assessments and evaluations. I think those are good practices that many of us use, because they're supporting good census evaluative work. We use these to plan ahead for our next census, and actually we use them quite extensively as we were asking questions of ourselves on how to change things. Where were we in 2020 when we were presented with the COVID pandemic the first week that we were in operations? Something new that we also brought in due to COVID was an extensive set of series independent assessments that were done by 3 different groups that I have listed here at the bottom. So the Jason group works with our Department of Defense frequently, and they were able to do some quick look, I'll call them assessments, that we wanted external stakeholders to have another qualification from an independent body that we made the best decisions we could as we were replanning for COVID-19 in real time. Moving down our American Statistical Association, and then as well our National Academy of Sciences Committee on National Statistics. Both of these groups have done extensive evaluations. The ASA group is finished, and the National Academies group will have a report this fall. So adding in these external expert reviews was something else that we did to monitor quality during 2020, and I think it's a good practice moving ahead. I think many do the post-enumeration survey, which we also did. That gives us another set of data points and evaluations, if you will, to find out where we had that coverage problems and where we could improve here. There's always a thirst for more information in terms of coverage. So this census was no exception, but we, of course, had our post-enumeration survey, which also suffered COVID impacts because it involved field collection. So we couldn't really catch a break in terms of implementing these field surveys, but we completed the post-enumeration survey as well. We had a couple of internal benchmarks that we frequently use, our demographic analysis, which is another independent method there, as well as our population estimates program, which runs all decade long. So 2 other benchmarks to gauge quality that are Census Bureau done or conducted, but all administrative records based. With models supporting them, and just providing some other benchmarks to measure. So moving ahead, we've got a lot of opportunity as part of the Census Bureau's transformation effort. We have stood up one major project called the Continuous Count Study, and that is allowing us to run sort of an administrative record tabulation for the census. We started doing that this past year formally as a continuous count study project. But what that's going to really help us do is identify the gaps where our administrative data is weak and we need to seek additional data. And some of the groups that have been mentioned already in terms of the hard to count, the collective dwellings, the American Indian tribes. There's just some very distinct groups where we know our administrative records are not strong. And so we want to run the continuous count study to see how much better we can get those totals, but still confirm where we need to do not only more administrative data work, but also where to focus our operational design for the field for 2030. We're also going to continue to produce some of those other benchmarks throughout the decade. So we've got quite a few numbers, not just one number, but quite a few, because they all have their weaknesses. So that gives us a nice portfolio of benchmarks to use. And something that is a major change, or I'll say a big step for us on real-time monitoring and processing of the data quality during collection. So this is what we're going to do during 2030. As I alluded to, we've done a lot of things during post-collection that had we had the opportunity to go back to the field during collection, it would have been ideal. So we're going to try to accelerate some of these operations so we can at least get some quick looks and identify egregious errors and have the opportunity to collect them before we close out data collection. You know, and of course, we always want to do everything earlier in our process. And so, you know, we're going to continue to try and move earlier and see where we can get, where there's a productive tension there between what we know and how we can correct it. And then, of course, we're going to maintain our commitment to quality and transparency. So we had put those operational metrics out, as I had mentioned, but we were doing a lot of things reactively because of the pressure from COVID. So we have a long on-ramp now to 2030. We want to plan that in advance and also plan our systems so those reports kind of automatically are produced, where we were doing a little behind the scenes to get that information out there and in a timely manner for our stakeholders this time. So I hope I kept in my 5 minutes, Fiona. That will be my quick 5 there.
Thank
on,
you, Deb. There was
quality.
a lot of really interesting material in there, and I think a lot of food for thought. For myself, the most powerful thread that I keep seeing whenever I see you present, Deb, is the importance not just of assessing quality, but of communicating quality. And I think that's probably something really important that needs to be parked for discussion. Mm-hmm. The importance of maintaining public trust in what you're doing by ensuring that people have access to all these quality metrics that you're producing. Thank you so much, Deb. Without further ado, we're going to move on to the next presentation in this panel, which is from Helen from Kenya, who's going to tell us about innovations in the use of geospatial information in the Kenyan census. And I'm sure that there are all sorts of innovations we can hear about, because obviously this is something that moves very, very fast. So over the course of the 10 years between censuses, things can change a lot. So Helen, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. Are you able to see?
The floor is yours.
Oh, sorry, my screen.
We don't see just yet.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm having difficulties, so sharing my screen.
Would it help if we upload your presentation and run it for you?
Yeah, you have just do it for me, please.
Andrea,
yes,
please.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just.
So thank you. I hope everyone is seeing the screen. Are we able to see it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the outline.
1 second.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Second, sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm Helen. I'm going to talk about the use of geospatial information in census undertaking, and that's the 2019 Census Kenya experience. So we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, I'll have a brief introduction on geospatial data that we are using, and then I'll talk of the various geospatial data and how we use them in the census processes, then requirements for collection and preparation of geospatial data, and then the challenges while dealing with geospatial information. Next, please. So we all know that geospatial information is data that is associated with the location on the Earth surface. And for the 2019 census, we had data sets that we used, geospatial data sets. And what we collected from the field were locations of households and point features. And all these, as we were collecting also information on the administrative units that they were falling in, and this data facilitated in the delineation of the enumeration areas. So the delineation was being done in the office. So after we got this data from the field, we were able to overlay it on satellite imageries and aerial photographs, and then delineated all the enumeration areas for us to be able to produce the boundary file, which was in form of a shape file, and then the census geofile, plus the production of the enumeration area maps. And this exercise was done almost 3 years to the census enumeration, because we started in 2016 that was around November 2016, and we finished in June 2019, almost 3 years before we did the census enumeration. Let's move on. Next. So in accordance to the 2020 law of census recommendation on use of technology, during the mapping, we embraced use of tablets during data collection on the household data that we are using. Then use of aerial photographs and satellite imageries as our base maps. And we started using ODK up to collect data in the field, but later on we had to go to use a GIS software, that is Survey 123 from Esri, to help us in data collection. And we also used the GIS ArcMap for map production. And then the enumeration area maps that we produced were geo-referenced, so we were to load them in the tablets, and using a PDF reader, these maps were supposed to be interactive to guide in the boundary identification. And also during that time when we started using the Survey 123 software, we were able to come up with a dashboard that was monitoring progress and coverage during the mapping process. Next. So during the planning, we used the geofile, the census geofile. And as you can see, it's of key in the census geofile is the EA code file. There is an item on EA code file, and this was very, very important for us because this was what we were to integrate with the census data for any further analysis or any work we were to do with the census data. So that was our unique code that we were using. Let's move on. And these are the uses that we used during planning using the geofile. And one of it was budgeting for the personnel and logistic during actual enumeration. So the geofile enabled us to know how many enumerators were required for the entire exercise, the number of supervisors, the number of vehicles, and the training venue. So it was all very useful during planning for the census. And also it was to ensure total coverage of the entire country. We created a total of 129,067 enumeration areas. So we were to ensure each of these enumeration areas had an enumerator who was to cover it. And this one helped us in ensuring that no enumeration area or part of the country was omitted or there was no overlap during the census. And another thing that the geofile really helped us in is estimating the population in the household. During mapping, we got a total of 12 million households. That was during census, but during mapping, we had a total of 14 million. And this one we attributed maybe due to the understanding of what a household was during mapping. So maybe that's what brought the difference during that time. Then the estimated population during mapping was 49 million against the 47 that we got during the actual census enumeration. So we can see the importance of the geofile in estimating the population that we are expecting during the census enumeration. Let's move to the next slide, please. We also had the enumeration area maps that we created using GIS, and we have two maps there. We have one which was covering a total sublocation, that's an administrative unit. And then the other one was a single EA map. So the single EA map was to be used by the enumerators, while the sublocation map was to be used by the supervisor in distribution of the work. Maybe its uses, let's go to the next slide to see the uses of these two maps. So the maps were used in EA identification by the supervisor and the enumerator, then to locate households, because when we were preparing the maps, the household that we collected during mapping, which had GPS coordinates, were mapped on the imageries. And so the enumerator and the supervisor could see where the households are located instead of just moving within an EA. So it was very important in guiding where the households were located. And also the maps were being used for monitoring the progress of enumeration. So the supervisor could be able to know by just using the map how far the people were, because we had some point of interest that were being guided, or that would guide the supervisor to know exactly where the person is. And then the maps are also useful in distribution of the work, and also to ensure that there were no omissions or overlaps while the exercise was being carried. Then, as I said earlier, that we collected households location. These were a quality check. When we did the pre-listing, whatever we were getting from pre-listing, we were comparing with what we got from mapping for us to know whether those who are doing pre-listing were able to cover the entire area. So that was the use of the households that we took GPS coordinates for. Let's move to the next. So during analysis, we also use the geospatial data to visualize the census data. And as I said earlier, we came up with a unique code at enumeration area level that we were integrating with the census data. So because most of our analysis, what we've done so far, we've done at county level. We have a unique code at county level. And from what you're seeing, you can see the geo file plus the census file. So we are using the code, that is the unique code. Using GIS, we were able to join the two files together and come up with a file. Like the data we are having, we wanted to see the orphans. We were analyzing the orphans within the counties. And using that, we were able to come up with the maps. Let's go to the next slide. We did some spatial analysis using that. Let's go to the next slide. So we were able to to visualize now the data after integrating the geospatial data with the census data. So we did a lot of visualization. We have done quite a number of reports on censuses after integrating the geospatial data with the census data. So people are able to visualize the data instead of only having the tables. We are coming up with a census atlas, which after integrating the data, and we're working together with the specialists to come up with an atlas. And this one will be a traditional atlas, but later on we are looking into how we can come up with an interactive atlas. Let's go to the next slide, please. So there are some requirements during collection and preparation of geospatial data. One of those requirements, which is very key when we are planning, is to have a crowd server. So that's those people who are on the ground, they can be able to upload the data to the crowd server to enable those now who are working from the office now to be able to download and work and produce the geospatial data that is required in the census undertaking. Another requirement are servers with adequate space. Geospatial data is in form of graphics, so it requires some adequate space. And I think we worked on 2 servers to facilitate that work. And then another important requirement is high processing desktops. These are desktops that can be able to hold imageries, because we were working with imageries. So they should be have enough space, and also they should be high processing desktops, then laptops. These were used in the field by the cartographers who are guiding the teams. So they were also loading the imageries in the field. So they also need to be high processing laptops that can be able to accommodate imageries. Another requirement is GIS and ICT specialists. It should be noted for GIS to work well. We need to work closely with the ICT team to guide in terms of the hardware, the software, and also the servers. So these were very key for us. And we also worked closely because we are using the S3 GIS software. We worked closely with them to guide us where we had issues during the production of the geospatial data. Another, and I know it was presented as a challenge, is imageries. And these are current imageries. We had we had to download some imageries, and since we were not able to download them ourselves, we have to get a contract outside KNBS so that a team would be downloading the work for us. And another requirement is a well-maintained GIS software during the census undertaking. We were using the ESLI software, so we worked closely with them so that we could ensure that the processes could not stop. Let's move to the next one. And this is on challenges that we really—
Helen, forgive me for interrupting. Just to let you know that you only have about a minute left to give your conclusions, if you would. Thank you.
Okay, I'm almost through. This is the last one, please. And this one, this was displacement of GPS coordinates in the urban areas due to tall building and congestion of structures. Then we had a challenge on an application that could lead the interactive maps. And then the integration of the statistical and geospatial data during census enumeration. We wanted an application that could be able to collect data as well as have a map to guide in identification. Then these challenges were there. That is boundary dispute. Then cost in terms of geospatial software and hardware, and also lack of capacity during the census enumeration and analysis. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I do apologize for interrupting you. That was all really super helpful, useful information, I'm sure, and really demonstrating how geospatial information has a role throughout the entire census process. Just in the interest of time, I would like to ask Eric if you're ready to move straight along to the next presentation. Eric Schouten-Nordholt from the Netherlands is going to talk to us about the use of administrative data, which, as we know, is not really so much of an innovation in the Netherlands, but for many others, it is. So, Eric, you have the floor now, please.
Thank you, Fiona. Can you see my screen?
We do, yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, I feel very honored to give this short presentation. It's only a couple of minutes, so I will try to be brief. I also feel a bit of an outlier, being from the Netherlands, being from a register-based census country. So in this short presentation, I will try to set some outlines, some key points about the data collection in our situation, which is a bit different from a more traditional approach. The data sources that we use in our population and housing census. Then on to some characteristics of the census in my country. And then people often ask, if you want to change, what are the conditions facilitating the use of administrative sources? And that is also something I want to draw your attention to. And then I think we will leave the discussion to the general discussion at the end when all people have given their presentations. We are not only using administrative sources for our census, but actually for the majority of our outputs, we rely on our administrative sources. In addition, we have, of many of our registers. To be more efficient and more professional, we have also changed organization about 10 years ago, where nowadays we try to use the same infrastructure for social and economic statistics as much as possible. So it's no longer that these divisions are completely independent. There's an input division that is collecting all the relevant data that we need both in social and in economic statistics. We have also defined a preferred order of the collection, the so-called collection strategy. First, we look in all the registers we have available in the country and that we have access to for producing official statistics. If the variables are not there or not of enough detail or not of enough quality or too late, then we have the option to conduct sample surveys. This means that for our census, and our most recent census is the 2021 census, we rely on existing sources only. So we have no census 2021 questionnaires because we didn't feel that was necessary. It was not the first time we did that. Actually, since the 1971 census, we have never again conducted a census with questionnaires. We have always relied on existing sources, although the methodology and the quality has improved over time. To give you an idea of the sources we use, on this slide, I've collected the main sources that we used for our 2021 census. First, a number of registers, where the backbone is our population register. It's an automated population registration system, including all people residing in the country. Additionally, we have internally a jobs file and a self-employed file containing all the employees and all the self-employed people. And of course, if you have several jobs, you have several entries in that file, and you can also appear in both if you're part of the week employed and part of the week self-employed. New in this census is that we, for the first time, have made use of our educational attainment file. That's not a complete file. It's containing about 2/3 of the population and their highest level of education attained. But that's a very large number, and we use that as the basis to estimate the education tables in our census. Additionally, we use fiscal administration data, social security administration data, data on pensions and life insurance benefits that we have from people getting those benefits from different organizations in the country. And we have a housing register that we use for the housing census part of our population and housing census. There are also some smaller, less important registers, but these are the key registers we use in our census. Additionally, we reuse one existing survey, and that's the labor force survey, specifically for the occupation variable, because we don't have an occupation register, unfortunately. So here we reuse labor force survey microdata that we already have and estimate the occupation tables in our census. When I look at our Dutch census, I can mention a number of characteristics. I think it's relatively cheap compared to data collection among the people. On the other hand, we have invested a lot in setting up and maintaining all the registers in our country. Not only, of course, for statistical purposes, we are one of the users of these registers. It's relatively short production time between getting all the data in-house and producing the results. And also, we think this is more socially acceptable in the country than our last traditional census that met so many protests. People were worried, especially about confidentiality aspects. Can my privacy still be guaranteed? That was a key debate where people said, well, this is a risk, let's boycott the census. Well, then you don't have a socially acceptable census. Nowadays, we get questions now and then, but there's no such protest scene since we have moved from a traditional towards a register-based census. All our tables that we publish from our censuses are numerically consistent, and we think that is important to maintain. Of course, if you have a survey variable like occupation, that's the last remaining survey variable we have in our census, there is some missing information that limits the level of detail in your tables. But that's not a problem for national and regional tables, but at the lowest level, there is a bit less information than you would have with a traditional census. On the other hand, as I often say, we get 99% of the information for 1% of the cost. So that's a huge difference compared to the cost we had before. At the same time, we have become very dependent on the registers and the register owners. The availability of the data, the timeliness, is of key importance to us. But we have very good contacts with them. We have account managers. We collect questions for them. We are having lots of different meetings at the working level, at the management level, at the top management level, because we help each other in maintaining the registers and using the registers in an efficient and correct way. This way, we can compare our census results over time. I think that's very important because you want to know how did the country change since 10 years, since 20 years. Logical questions that we answer based on our census, but also international comparisons are possible. We compare our results with results of other European countries and other countries in the world, and that's very relevant also for policymakers and also very interesting, of course, to know how we are doing and how we are changing. And also, we are not restricted to making data available every 10 years. We make our data continuously available as soon as they are ready. And every 10 years, we have a very detailed set of tables to compare with other countries, but there's no restriction to a certain frequency of our outputs any longer. That sounds nice, and people often ask me, yeah, but what should we do to move into that direction if we want that? Well, there are a number of conditions you have to meet, otherwise you can't switch to a register-based census. First of all, you need to have a legal base. I mean, you have to stay within your legal framework. For us, that's the Statistics Act. Our Statistics Act is covering all our official statistics, including our population and housing census. Secondly, that's more difficult to measure. I think you need public approval. In our 1971 census, people said, oh no, you are becoming like Big Brother watching us. People felt uneasy. Nowadays, people understand it's efficient. There are strict conditions, who will have access to the data, how detailed we can publish because of privacy reasons. And we think there's public approval, but if there are questions, we are always eager to help people to get proper answers. There's also a necessity of cooperation among authorities, mainly government organizations, because we rely on other government organizations to get the data on time. And also not only the microdata, but also metadata are of course very important. You want to know what you get. Is it complete? Is it useful? Is it correct, etc. And we check that when the data enter our bureau. And then you need a comprehensive and reliable register system. It doesn't need to be perfect. We are not an administration giving fines if you haven't done something, but the statistical quality should be good enough. It should be close enough to reality. And currently, with the response problems we see in our surveys, we are sure that even if you would make it mandatory, going back to a traditional census in my country would lead to huge cost and lower quality and less timely statistics than our current approach based on administrative sources. But we have used quite a number of years to move from the old situation to a full register-based census that we have again. We're complete census down to very detailed regional levels. And finally, it's very handy if you have a unified identification system, preferably unique ID numbers. That makes the matching of information from different sources very simple. I don't say that if you don't have it, you can't have a register-based census, but it will be much more complicated and the quality will probably also be lower. So that gives you, I hope, some insight in the way we work. And well, if you're interested or have questions, I think we will leave the questions till also my colleagues from the other countries have given their presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Eric. A really useful presentation, definitely very, very helpful to many of the countries that are considering a move towards using registers. And there is definitely a great call for more guidance on this for countries who are thinking about that. I'm going to move straight on now. We still have 2 more presentations to go in the final half hour of this meeting. So I would like to ask Nur Farisa of Malaysia, please, to tell us about the use of electronic data collection, good practices and innovations in Malaysia. Nur Farisa, do we have you here? Yes, we do.
Yeah, I tried
The floor is yours.
I try to share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
We see your desktop background only.
Sorry, sorry for that. Okay, I stopped sharing first. Open share 3. Where's my presentation? Oops. Okay. Can you see that? I think I'm having problems. Sif, can you help me?
I have it ready if you want me to share it for you.
Yeah. Can you please share it? Thank you very much. Okay,
Sorry.
Hi everyone. Good morning again, good evening, good afternoon. Okay, today I will share the experience, the Malaysia experience in census taking, and specifically on the electronic data collection. Okay, next. Can I control this myself? Cannot, is it? So I will touch on the 3 main points here. The experience, the electronic data collection, and also some of the dissemination of the Malaysian census result. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the experience of Malaysian census. Next slide. Just briefly, this is the 6th census after the Malaysia independence of Malaysia in 1957. Different approach. 1970, 80, we used de facto approach. 1991, mixed approach, and then 2000 and forwards we use de jure. Okay, next slide. Okay, I think this is the same as other country. The objective of census is the main one is to collect stocks and profile of the country's population and housing, then to be the input for national development planning. As a basis for estimation and projection of the population and living quarters, and also an input for new benchmark in the development of socioeconomic indicators. Okay, next slide. Next slide. This is the coverage of census. Citizen and non-citizen that have stayed or intended to stay in Malaysia for more than 6 months, and then babies born on or before census day and still living on census day, those who pass away on or after census day, and also lodgers, boarders, and housemaid live together with the household that fulfill the 6-month requirement. Okay, next please. Okay, in defining the census date, Malaysia census day in 2002 2020 is 7 July. That we try as much as possible to avoid date where population mobility is high. So in Malaysia, this among the high mobility date, the school holidays, the Hajj season, the festive season, and also the mid-weekday. Okay, so next slide is on the electronic data collection in census 2020. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the integrated system that we have been we built in for census 2020. It's an integrated system which have 10 modules, starting from the mapping modules until the dissemination modules. It's an information gateway that is integrated and centralized full census system. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the mode that we use in 2020. Census, Kati-Kapi, which is the electronic mode, and also PAPI and DOPO. Okay, and then we make some cross-check with administrative record from that we get from 18 agencies. Actually, in Malaysia, we've divided the census taking to two phase. That is, the phase 1 is census and Kati. And Kapi, Papi, and Dopu, the face-to-face interview is on the phase 2. Main parameters from the census questionnaire, we have in total is 108 questions covering all from living quarters, household, person particulars, and also we add special module on health and fitness, social relation, housing, and senior citizen. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the distribution of the 108 questions by category and also the years of respondent. So the maximum question that will be answered is only 42 actually. Okay, next. Okay, this is our flow of e-census. First, we have a targeted group of respondents that we think they will fill e-census, such as the condominium people and also the government servant. So for this type of housing, we send them the postcard as in the screen. We send through their post box, and then in that postcard, there will be the identification of their living quarters. And then respondent will do the e-census registration. They will enter the name, address, email, and telephone number, and also enter the invitation code that is on that postcard. After that, they will receive OTP, like the one that we usually receive from a bank transaction. And then they sign in using their telephone number. After that, they can fill in the questionnaire, but they can fill in halfway and continue other days. They just need to log in again using their phone number. After they have finished filling in their particulars for all the household members, they will get e-census completion. And then the enumerator of that living quarters will get also a notification that that living quarters has finished the enumeration. Okay. Next. Okay, for Malaysia, I think for all the countries, we all have issues regarding the census 2020. So in Malaysia, actually, we are one of the country that continue doing our census through the COVID time. So we have to readjust of the census schedule. So actually the census is within 2 weeks, but this time is 482 days. That is from 7 July 2020 to 31st October 2021. We have made adjustment and rescheduling for, I think, about five times. And then also we have to adjust the enumeration mode. So the face-to-face interview, we have to minimize the face-to-face interview. So we use the electronic mode, we use the e-census, we resend again the invitation code through email, through SMS to the household that haven't respond yet. We also use the CATI if the questionnaire is not complete. Community reluctance and fear, I think that is one major issue because they don't want people to come to their house, and that makes all of them fill in the e-census mode. Okay, challenges in requirement of census enumerators, as one of the members says before, the turnover rate is very high. So in Malaysia, we have involvement about 43,400 enumerators. So here and there, they will get the COVID. So we have to what we call that? We have to take new persons to do the census. So for our electronic mode, actually we get about 90% of the response through electronic mode, that is covering e-census, CAPI and CATI. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is a sample of our dissemination of our census. This is the publication, Malaysia level, states level, and also administrative level. Next slide. These are the topics that have been covered in that publication. The statistics on population, then selected demographic, also social economic indicators, and some articles in there. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is other publication. Okay, next, please. Okay, this is our census dashboard that can drill down up to parliament and also the state district level. Okay, next slide. This is the new dashboard that we call Open DOSM dashboard. So in this dashboard, actually, we can download raw data to do our own analysis. It's not limited to population data only, but all sort of data that's collected from DOSM is in there. Okay, next. Okay, this is our portal. And I think that's all from Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a really interesting whistle-stop tour of the census in Malaysia. Really helpful to hear. Thank you. We have only 15 minutes left, so I'm going to introduce the last speaker. But before I do so, can I just ask the organisers, will it be possible to have some additional time for discussion, either carrying on today or perhaps putting it over into tomorrow? Because it doesn't seem like we'll have very much time to discuss all of these fantastic presentations.
We certainly can have more time tomorrow at the beginning to continue the discussion. But if the participants are willing to stay an extra 10 minutes or so, if there's no objection, maybe we can also continue. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good news. That means you don't have to rush super fast, Richard. I'm going to give you the floor now. This is Richard from Ireland, who's going to tell us about the dissemination and use of census results and the good practices in Ireland. The floor is yours, please, Richard.
Okay, thanks, Fiona, and thanks for the opportunity to do the presentation. So look, it's only a 5-minute presentation, so I've kind of selected a couple of themes. So I think in terms of considering dissemination and utilization of census results, we need to reflect on the importance of census, particularly from the national, regional and local level. And it is a really valuable public good. So I think the onus is on us is to maximize its use. And really, we've got to be familiar with the key types of users. So we have society or the general public at large, policymakers and planners, the private sector, the research community, and within our national statistical offices also, where, I mean, the census results do underpin all our, particularly our household and demographic statistics. So it's useful to look back at I suppose, the evolution of how we disseminate our census. If we look back to the 1900s and even earlier, we used to get large kind of journals with kind of dense text and very detailed typeset tables. And then as time progressed and the PCs came along, we got sort of more much nicer user-friendly looking outputs with bar charts, bullet point text, accompanied by thematic reports, and very often then infographics came on stream, which really broadened the appeal of the data to the wider population. The advent of online dissemination systems then, where you had kind of macro level data where users could go in and select the years, the variables, the level of geography they wanted, kind of took it to the next stage. And looking back to the last round of censuses, I suppose the advent of interactive mapping tools really took the dissemination onto the next level. So users were able to go into a map of their region or their country, select on the geography. Then they were presented with kind of various buttons with the type of output, like, for example, housing, and they clicked on their housing characteristics. And this generated a very user-friendly bar chart, which accompanied the map. So again, very nice user-friendly type of output. And I suppose looking ahead to the next round, just wondering what form it might take, and it may go towards the kind of story map where you integrate the interactive mapping with text narrative and other layered data. And we've seen this with the publication of the Sustainable Development Goals, how this really takes the interactive mapping to a new level. So just looking at some of the good practice, I suppose really it's around the increasing the visualization of outputs to get that wide outreach beyond the researchers and policymakers. So the use of infographics, charts, thematic maps, story maps, and particularly on the GIS side, we've heard a lot about it so far. It's important that the mapping data can interact with other spatial data, for example, data on roads, hospitals, schools. So you can have these layered maps and integrate kind of local photos and videos. But I think what's critical to achieve this type of dissemination material is that commonly agreed geocodes are used both within the National Statistics Office and also across the government agencies. So just moving on, and again, thinking ahead on the new horizons ahead to 2030, like we've seen a lot in the media about artificial intelligence, and from chatting to our communications people here, we can produce statistical outputs now using artificial intelligence just from using tabular data. So this can lead to large resource savings in terms of the production of statistical releases from our census, but It'll also involve a lot of internal controls on what's been produced, given the new technology. Also, externally, the use of like ChatGPT, and that this can really expand the reach of census data. But again, with the opportunity comes the threat, and we need to be proactive, I think, in dealing with the kind of misinformation or misuse of the census data out there. So there's a communication challenge there. Just going on, another key dissemination kind of platform for census is the provision of microdata. Traditionally, it's been to the specialist researchers, where they're provided with an anonymized microdata file in a secure setting. Sometimes it involved coming into the statistics office and signing a lot of secrecy documents. It's moved on now where they get remote access with passwords and that, and their outputs are checked for statistical disclosure control. But what we've seen now with the recent round, and particularly with the UK census results, which were just launched, it's now possible to put the census microdata into a cloud computing environment, to have this flexible table building software where a user can go in and design the table they want. They can run it on the census microdata. But what's great about this is the statistical disclosure control is actually running while the table is being generated. So if it passes the disclosure control, the table is output to the user. If it doesn't, it's suppressed. So this generates a really, really good new product to our users, but also it's very kind of resource saving from the statistical office and not having to do the statistical output disclosure control. And it's a really powerful tool. And as I said, it's available with the England, Wales and Northern Ireland census, and probably other NSIs throughout the world. But I think it's something really for the future, and for an expanded service to the researcher community and the public at large. So I hope I've kept within the 5 minutes, Fiona. So look, I'll pass back to you there.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think there's a lot of interesting points in there. I'm going to use the chair's prerogative and put in my own question first to you, Richard, which is about the ways in which you have